Welcome back to the Art of Football 365. This is episode 4 of our mental health series for men. And the topic today we're going to be talking about is the question, what's wrong? It's kind of a question that a lot of people ask each other all the time when you notice something is not right with another person. So we're going to dive into that. But before we do that, we have 2 guests with us today, Blake Fontana and Trent, a.k.a. Zay Lewis. I should have said that the other way around, I guess, but either way it works. We did a show with them. We did a show with them this past week, so if you have not already, go check that out ASAP. It is on all of our social medias. The links are all posted in our description of our highlight YouTube video. Check that out ASAP. It was a blast. We had a great time with these 2 guys, so we wanted to add them into this number 4 episode today. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask Blake this question. When someone asks you about mental health and they come up to you and they notice something's not right and they say, what's wrong? What's your initial reaction? How do you feel when someone asks you that question?
So from the perspective of
say you're just sitting at home and you got some friends over and you guys everyone else seems pretty happy and you're just off kind of in your own world and you're just sitting back and someone says to you what's wrong, just because you're being silent, what's going through your head in that situation?
I would say if somebody came to me first without me saying anything in that instance, I probably would feel less likely to actually talk about it, try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, just trying to keep it to myself, I guess, because I feel like that's the right thing to do.
Okay.
So I was saying, we were talking about the topic the other day in the group chat with you. We said, what's wrong? And you said something right away. Your reaction had me laughing pretty hard. Because what did you say? It was something like when a girl asks you something.
It's usually what females ask.
Yeah, so why did that trigger that quick reaction? Why is that something that you're not really a fan of? Why is that? Because that's kind of fitting going in, not you specifically, but when people in regards to people with mental health, kind of not liking it and not ignoring the factors and stuff that lead up to it. But why in your case did you say that you don't like it?
I feel like men carry a lot of weight on their shoulders already. So when we tend to go quiet sometimes, we'll, just head off to work and just be that. Won't come home saying anything, and then all of a sudden, wow, what's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And nothing might not be wrong, but at the same time, you might have a situation you're dealing with at work, or a situation you're dealing with at home, or with your friends or something like that. And you might just want to keep it to yourself. For me, just that question is it's kind of just aggravating, or it's just irritating in a way. Nothing might not be wrong, but apparently something is sometimes. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot that a man deals with in his mind on a day-to-day basis. So that'd be the main thing.
I want to go back to Blake with this. Do you think people when you just said, there might not be nothing wrong, but there could be something wrong? Do you think people just notice that, with your facial expressions, or why do you think people just immediately ask you what's wrong? Why is that their go-to thing when, for example, you walk in the door from work and you don't really say anything? Why is the first thing that your spouse or some person you're with is, why do they ask you what's wrong? Why is that their immediate reaction?
I think because, obviously if they hang around you enough, they know you as a person, but if you're not always on point, they might think that something's up.
Yeah.
And you feel like internally you have to portray that image to be perfect, but in reality, then when that question does get asked, you don't feel as comfortable saying it just because, I don't know, you're just trying to be you for a second and just have your own space.
And if there is something wrong, why do you think we as men choose not to address it or talk about it?
I think the biggest thing is kind of like what we talked about before, where we feel like we have to portray a certain image and we have to fulfill that. So when we're not fulfilling that, we feel like less of a man.
Okay.
So nowadays, this is kind of a question for everybody. I mean, I was pointed towards Zay, but when you're starting to look now for people and kind of going out with people, interacting with friends, acquaintances, peers, whatever it is, family members, are you kind of looking out for reasons why, what's wrong with people? If there's a sign that's, physically or emotionally, are you kind of going out of your way now to kind of assess people, not make a big deal about it, but if something kind of seems off, are you kind of going to more tend to reach out? Because I know Bryce and I, we've said this in conversations just in our life that we're trying to make that more of a point in our lives. Yeah. Has that been something that you tried to focus on, or stuff that's crossed your mind, kind of just more mental health awareness at the end of the day? Right. Is kind of the reason for that.
It's as simple as just walking down the street and just asking somebody how they're doing.
Exactly.
Sure. You can just walk into somebody, you don't know for anything, but hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Just going by today. You don't know what anybody's going through on a basis. So
It's the little things.
it's the little things that always count. So if you can just, just be some type of help, some type of positivity to somebody, just try to do it. I wouldn't, not in these days, no, you wouldn't want to just hold yourself back. You don't know who you could run into, how they can help you or how you can help them.
True.
For me, like I said, that's what it's about.
That's a
Pulling
great
on the next person. So.
I think to answer Gannon's question, I mean, for me, in my perspective, I know ever since I've been more aware of my mental health, I think in a way, like instead of people asking me the question like, what's wrong? Why don't people just ask you like, how are you doing? Why is it what's wrong instead of how are you doing? I think the question, how are you doing,
It's
allows,
more open-ended.
it's open-ended to allow you
Good
to
evening.
actually express yourself on how you're feeling.
Yeah, I think what's wrong, then you feel like somebody's assuming that something's
That
wrong.
something's wrong.
that
And
makes
then you
that
actually
wrong.
get triggered.
Yeah.
But
That's
when you
personally
say
how
how
I-
you're feeling, it can go left or right. It can be good or bad,
Yeah.
depending on the situation, and that gives it.
I know for me, like when someone asks me,
They're
what's
not
wrong,
attacked, because then they feel like you only get asked that question in a negative situation, or somebody's kind of
but for me,
annoying you and going at you.
when I got it, while having anxiety, if someone asks me what's wrong, it triggers me. Like it genuinely
Gets it going more.
It sparks
It
my
makes it
anxiety
worse.
because I'm like, damn, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Why do people notice this? Like I'm not trying to portray this image, but it's noticeable, I guess. And how do I fix that? So then it gets my anxiety up. This is a question neither of you guys really have to answer in a way, I guess, but if you guys want to openly talk about your mental health and some of the struggles you guys have gone through, I want to leave that open to you guys right now. So, have you guys struggled with anxiety or depression or any form of that? You don't have to be specific, and if you don't want to answer it, that's totally up to you. But
I think the biggest shifting point for me was right after I graduated high school. Like I kind of felt like I was on top of the world in the sense of going to college. I really decided to go off to college my freshman year. Had a lot of fun. And then right towards the end of the year, I got into some trouble, and that kind of made me realize it was like a breaking point for me.
okay.
It made me wake up and realize hey, I had my fun freshman year, but now it's time to turn things around and make the most of what I have going forward. And I think a big shift for me was in the gym, starting to work out, seeing that transformation of my body and seeing the work that I put in to make it happen. It kind of just fanned into other areas of my life.
Boosted that mental health in itself. Yeah, because working your physical health is definitely a key to helping your mental health. Same way.
Good foundation.
People talk about that a lot, but
No anxiety, but really just became a shell of myself. Kind of forgot who I was. Lost in the sauce almost. A lot of people are kind of familiar with that term, but just wasn't too sure of myself anymore. So it took a while to come out of that. But while you're in that state, man, you really have to fight it because otherwise you let so much time go by, and you don't know what's going to happen.
start to drown.
Yeah.
In a way.
To build off of both of those, what you said, the gym and stuff, kind of the foundation helps get stuff kick-started again. No matter the severity of it, whether you're dealing with anxiety and depression, just a little extra push. What were some of the key things that you guys mentally kind of did to get in the right direction to help get stuff in the right, areas of your life to get everything kind of flowing in the right direction? What that you said the gym, but just mentally little side notes, key things that Bryce gave a lot of insight to what works for us. Just little day-to-day things. If there's something that you can share for our group out there too.
Yeah, during that time, I took those on the most quietest times. You guys kind of all this space, kind of escape. I know all the time, right? Sort of just be say a little more things. Home body, say to myself. I started to read more. Once I got into reading books around mindset, that helped a lot. But even the book, the compound effect. That's a book about how these small changes and stack up and huge changes. And I think during a time where I was really focused on improving my body, helping else had, but it also showed me others. I make one small shift every day.
I think staying busy helps too. I think that's going to book or going to the weight room, your body, trying to be fit, trying to get fit. Anything that you're working to struggle and need some help to need something to move forward. A lot of people that struggle not having goals, they don't have a purpose. And I know that's where I see little things.
Little golden is so minor and so daily activities build.
My question last question. This is both of you. Did you ever you shut yourself? Get more off. You weren't there. You weren't second was for yourself. Getting to that.
It's a reality check. And I realized I don't know myself to like that. You're just seeing it. So once you have a reality check, whether you're going through a good thing or just real life in general, it's going everything's going to So that what it did for me was putting all this work into this job he doesn't care about. You go on there, you frustrated or rage, you don't want to do that. So why you had to go home in the first 2 minutes. So that's what I about that situation. And then start really down and focus on what I really want. So it's all about what you want. And what are you going to do to get it?
And for you, how did you, with the weight room and transforming your body, did you set certain goals where you changed your workout routine, or were there minor things that you did to kind of get to the place you wanted to be?
I think it goes back to what I did to investing in yourself. Like, from all, even just like learning different angles, like I take to lose weight, but then I started me setting goals into what I wanted to accomplish outside of just the weight. Investing in reading, investing into different trainings to make myself, put myself in a position to become better, I guess. And when you put yourself in a position to become better, and you show up and do it every single day, you start having more belief in yourself and doing better.
I like what Zay said. He said about working a job or whatever that you don't like to do or you don't want to do, and you kind of, I think in a way, I think that's where the phrase "what's wrong" kind of falls into place, because when you fall victim to being that societal norm where you're just constantly doing what everyone else is doing, I think when you fall victim to that, that's when something goes wrong with your head, your mental space, the way you think, and how everything operates. You fall victim to being everyone else. Why does everyone want to be like the same? I think that's a big thing with mental health is if we choose to be our own person and we choose to work towards bettering ourselves instead of trying to be like everyone else, chasing everyone else. Why are we not chasing the best version of ourselves instead of chasing the best version of someone else? You got another question, Gannon? No more questions?
If you want to keep talking, I mean, we've had some good discussions just from.
Yeah.
I think based on what he was saying about being the best version of it, no matter what it is, the reading, the lifting, that's kind of been a big thing for me personally, like being the best version of yourself that day. I said be where your feet are at, and in our old episode, like I've put that in all my social media stuff. Like that's ingrained in my head now, and that's in the moment. What are you doing? Like we're doing this podcast right now. I'm gonna put all my thought process and concentration into that, so that my content's just as good for the podcast. Because I know Bryce is always gonna show up with that mentality, and he's gonna be ready to go. So I know I need to match that, and that's lifting. Just talking to friends. Just having a good relationship with people, friends, family, that type of thing. Sports, running, all that type of stuff in my life that I do. Because all those little things you take care of in the present are going to help for your future down the road. I think it was kind of based off what he was saying, how he got established with his reading and lifting and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool because I like that a lot.
Yeah, and we talked about this in our past episodes on the project. My phrase I kind of came up with is reflect on your past, live in the present, and trust your future. And I think they all tie hand in hand. I think if you're able to look back on your past, reflect on it, understand where you went right, where you went wrong, you're able to live in the present. And I think through living in the present, how hard you're working, what your mentality is, I think you're able to trust that future because of how hard you're working in the present. And I think that's all related to mental health in a way. Because if your mind's not right, you're not going to trust your future because you don't know where your future's headed. But my last question I have for the both of you, Gannon, you can answer this too. I'll start with Blake. What's your advice for someone who's dealing with mental health right now and they're scared to step out of their shell and seek help? What's your advice to that person?
I think a big thing is to be aware of your self-talk to yourself. And whether that's going to talk to somebody else or just reading a book, whatever it is for you, be aware of what you're saying to yourself. I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but I heard this quote a while back, of the fact that one tiny thought that we have can ultimately become like a belief, which becomes basically like, they said, a liberating truth in your life. So one thought you have can transform your life and become whatever it is that you're living. So if it's a bad thought, you can have every single day you wake up, you're gonna feel that way towards it. So I think be aware of your self-talk and what you
I like that. I like that a lot.
Talk about it. If you have an issue, don't be afraid to talk about it. You can get further ahead or even beat a situation by just simply just going somewhere and talking about it. Believe it or not, this is therapeutic to me.
No.
So we just sitting here talking. You don't know what kind of conversation you walk up on
Exactly.
or how things will branch out. So just simply like you say, stating what's wrong. If something is wrong, just put it out there. Don't be in your head too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
You got any final words of advice, Gannon?
Yeah, I just think it's okay to not be okay. I think it's the biggest thing at the end of the day. No matter the severity, like there's so many different ranges with this type of mental health awareness type of things you can get into with being really severe towards one end of the spectrum or all the way to just having a little anxiety when it comes to one thing you do,
Mhm.
once a month. Those are still things people are dealing with. So just reaching out and asking, it's getting more shifted in that direction in society and culture of making it okay and to be vocal about it, but it's gonna need a lot more. But
Yeah.
I think it's just at the end of the day, it's okay to not be okay. It's kind of my thing.
I agree with all the advice you guys just gave, and I think my final thoughts on any advice for you guys that are listening is there's no shame in it, especially as a man where the stigma's on us. There's no shame to not being okay. There's no shame to admitting something's wrong. No shame to talk about it. It doesn't make you weaker. It actually makes you stronger in a way because you're willing to sacrifice your feelings and put yourself first. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. We have another video coming out, episode 5 will be dropping the next day. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys.